Looking around Melbourne, new houses often have this bit of a disconnect between the rear of the property where the life of the house happens and the front of the house, which is often a bit of a barrier, like there's not much life that happens, the front garden isn't really used very much. Can we activate that kind of front garden space and bring this kind of connection between the life of the house, but then also kind of connect that front garden with this great site? The clients, Simon and Melissa, came to us after having bought a house in Yarraville, the western suburb of Melbourne. The house they bought was in pretty bad shape. It was an old weatherboard bungalow, but it was on a great site opposite a park on a great street, and we made a collective decision to take down the property just due to the disrepair. They're a family of 5, 3 young kids, so they needed a 4-bedroom house. The biggest challenge of the project was how do you provide this connection between a private house and the public street and streetscape, but also provide privacy and security. The ground floor consisted of main bedroom at the rear of the space, kitchen, living, dining, facing the central garden, and then we had this front room. The clients were really keen to get a minimal, clean interior. So a lot of the hard working spaces are out of sight, and when you come into the space, it's a really simple design. We were keen to create a series of spaces which drew your attention to the light in the space itself, as opposed to objects within the space. So we created a series of double height spaces, lower hallways and vaulted ceilings. We ended up enclosing the front garden and shifting the entry to the side. So we overlapped the entry with the driveway, and that allowed us to have that wider front room, really enclose that and open up that front room to that front garden space and make it a usable space. The front room, we introduced an operable timber batten screen to the front veranda, which really allows the client control over privacy and light. We were keen to ensure, given the open nature of the house, was that the clients felt comfortable in the room. With the kitchen, we didn't want it to be a kind of object in space. The island faces the garden and faces north, and it was connected to the dining and living space in the middle of the house. We were keen to kind of integrate it into the interiors within that space. We've got these large timber lift and slide doors which can be slid away to open up the space to the garden, but also these are a lot more energy efficient than your standard aluminium or steel frame windows. When you close it, it moves down, and there's a rubber seal which actually seals the door tight, so it's airtight. The average Australian home's pretty inefficient with energy and is often quite drafty. We were keen to keep that openness and connection with the garden and have sliding doors which allowed that, but also eliminate those drafts and provide a sense of comfort in the house. The client wanted us to provide a really minimal interior. They were also keen to create warmth in the house and didn't want a cold, kind of sterile environment. So we chose a Vic ash for a lot of the wall cladding and the flooring on the ground floor, mainly because of the colour of the timber creates really soft tones and delicate tones within the house. We introduced some subtle colour into some of the different spaces on the ground floor. We used the surrounding context for inspiration, so there's green in the ensuite and in the pantry, which links to the garden and the park. With the brief of a really simple, minimal interior, the stairs at the front of the house became this almost sculptural kind of element. The first floor consists of 3 kids' bedrooms and 2 small bathrooms. And it was a pretty functional layout based around the stairs and that entry void. The window placements on the upper level in the kids' rooms were placed either to capture views of surrounding rooftops or central garden, and the front rooms have views out to the park also. Given it was a two-story house on a primarily single-level street, we were pretty keen to not have a big box at the front of the house, basically. So we created this gable roof form which tapers down, especially from approaching the house on an angle. You get a clear connection between the tapered roof form of that front part of the house and then the neighbouring kind of rooftops. The materiality for the exterior of the house is pretty straightforward. It takes a lot of inspiration from what's around it and just local materials. So we've got locally made bricks, timber and colorbond roofing and weatherboard cladding, which ties back to the idea of trying to be sympathetic to what's around us. Our approach is not necessarily that we always do minimal design, but it's more about we design appropriately and appropriate to the neighbourhood, appropriate to the location and obviously appropriately to the client. The minimal nature of the design is actually pretty hard and a lot of effort and a lot of detail. But in this case, we achieved the objective for the client, which they lived in other spaces which they felt were cluttered and weren't particularly happy in. And they really wanted this house to be the opposite of that, which was a lot of storage, everything was clean and away, so that they could just enjoy the space and not have to think about all the humdrum of everyday life. The nice thing about being back at the house and talking to the client is the things that they keep on coming back to is the peaceful energy of the house and the moments that they enjoy, which are often quiet moments, looking out to the park or looking back at the garden. And I guess that kind of ties into the original intent, which was to try and bring focus on those moments as opposed to objects. It's really about the bigger things.